Alright, let's talk about a moment that didn't just break the internet. It redefined what it means to be a rookie in the NFL. Because fans didn't just get a glimpse of Shedeur Sanders slinging passes in his preseason debut for the Cleveland Browns. They got front row seats to history being made. And no, I'm not exaggerating. In one night, Sanders didn't just show he could play. He became the face of a revolution. Picture this. The Browns are wrapping up their first preseason game, energy buzzing through the stadium.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Fans hungry for something. Anything to believe in. Sanders takes the field, sharp, calm, looking like he was built for this moment. And then, while everyone's still buzzing about his performance, the bombshell drops. Nike announces that Sanders has signed a monster deal, $125 million on paper, already jaw-dropping. But here's the kicker. After his preseason performance, the deal doubled. $250 million. $250 million. For a guy who hasn't even played a regular season snap. And that's not even the wildest part. Sanders negotiated a level of control that athletes dream about. 50% of jersey sales? That's unheard of. Nobody gets that. Teams and leagues usually swallow up that revenue like a vacuum cleaner on a shag carpet. But Sanders flipped the script. Before he even stepped onto the field, fans were lining up for his jersey, and he's walking away with half the profits. $15 million before week 1. Let that sink in. $15 million just from jerseys. And he hasn't even been hit by a blitzing linebacker yet. The stadium erupted. Fans in the stands were pulling out their phones. Breaking news, alerts flashing across screens. The dog pound went from barking to roaring. Because this wasn't just another endorsement deal. This was a takeover. Now let's get into the business side. Because Shedeur isn't just playing quarterback. He's playing chess while everyone else is still fiddling with checkers. This deal is layered. It's not just about cleats and jerseys. Sanders has been building his empire brick by brick. He's got his own apparel line. He's selling barbecue sauce, because of course he is. Tell me you wouldn't buy a bottle of primetime barbecue heat. He's partnered with EA Sports, and he's working with Tom Brady on a brand that's already pulling in $75 million annually. Think about that. $75 million just from one partnership. He's diversifying like he's Warren Buffett in shoulder pads. And then there's the prime equity clause. This is where the game really changes. Inspired by Deion Sanders, Shedeur's dad, this clause gives him full control over his image rights. That means appearances, commercials, sponsorships, everything tied to his name and likeness is his. The team can't touch it. The league can't touch it. It's his to profit from, his to control. For decades, players had to bend the knee, letting organizations profit off their faces, their names, their stories. Not Shedeur. He's the first to plant the flag. And you better believe other athletes are already lining up to demand the same thing. And here's what makes it so electric. Sanders isn't just cashing checks, he's giving back. Just a few weeks ago, when a tragic fire broke out in the community, Sanders didn't just send thoughts and prayers. He was there. He was writing checks, showing up in person, helping victims rebuild. He's proving that being an icon isn't just about flexing your wealth. It's about wielding influence responsibly. Fans see that, and it makes them rally behind him even harder. Now, from the Browns' perspective, this is both a dream and a nightmare. On the one hand, Shedeur is a marketing goldmine. He's putting the Browns on the map in a way they haven't been since, well, ever. We're talking national buzz, jersey sales through the roof, new sponsorships knocking on the door, primetime games suddenly looking a lot more attractive. He's the type of player who doesn't just change games, he changes franchises. On the other hand, the power dynamic has shifted. Shedeur isn't just a quarterback. He's a brand, a business, a movement. And when your rookie quarterback is the highest paid rookie in NFL history before his first game, how exactly do you coach him the same way you coach everyone else? Stefanski can draw up plays, but does he really hold the same authority when his quarterback just signed a deal bigger than the GDP of some small countries? That's the tension simmering under the surface. And you can bet the rest of the locker room feels it too. Imagine being a veteran who's been grinding in the league for years, chasing endorsements, hustling for a payday, only to watch a rookie walk in with a $250 million contract and more control over his brand than you've ever dreamed of. Some players will admire it, sure. But others? Resentment is inevitable. That's the kind of thing that can either unify a team under a superstar's glow or fracture it if jealousy creeps in. But Shedeur? He's handling it like a pro. He's not rubbing it in. He's not flaunting the contract in teammates' faces. He's still showing up early, grinding through practices, keeping his head down where it matters. The money, the fame, the headlines, their noise. And he's tuning it out. That balance, being the biggest star in the room while acting like one of the guys, is exactly why fans are going all in on him. The cultural impact is just as big. Shedeur Sanders is showing a generation of athletes that you don't have to wait for the league to give you power. You can build it yourself. You can demand it. You can negotiate it. The old model of shut up, play, and be grateful for your check is gone. Sanders is the proof. He's walking into the NFL not as a rookie looking for approval, but as a mogul who's already rewritten the rules. And the fans? They're stunned. The dog pound is in shock, but it's the good kind. It's the kind of shock that feels like, wait, is this real? Are the Browns actually the team with the player for once? Cleveland has spent decades watching stars thrive somewhere else. LeBron left, Baker fizzled, and the city's sports history has been defined by heartbreak. But Shedeur's Nike deal feels different. It feels like maybe, just maybe, the Browns finally landed someone who isn't just good at football. He's iconic. But let's not sugarcoat it. This deal also puts a target on his back. Defenders across the league are circling this story, itching for a chance to humble him. Every linebacker, every safety, every defensive end is thinking the same thing. You think you're a superstar already? Let's see how you handle pressure when the bullets are live. Sanders has the weight of the hype machine strapped to his shoulders, and the NFL isn't exactly known for being kind to rookies who come in with this much spotlight. Still, if anyone's built for it, it's him. He's been under the microscope his whole life, raised in the orbit of Deion Sanders, trained to embrace the noise, the attention, the spotlight. This isn't new to him. It's just bigger. So what does this mean for the future? Simple. Shedeur Sanders has kicked open a door that other athletes are going to rush through. That prime equity clause? Expect every star college athlete to demand it when they go pro. That level of control over branding? It's going to become the new standard, not the exception. Sanders isn't just changing his own career. He's changing the industry. And for the Browns, the question is simple. Do they rise to the occasion, building a franchise around this once-in-a-generation star? Or do they let their own dysfunction ruin it like they always have? Because if they mess this up, if they alienate Sanders or fail to capitalize on the momentum, the fallout will be legendary. Let's hand out a fake award, because it's only fitting. The Rookie Mogul of the Year trophy goes to Shedeur Sanders, the first rookie in NFL history to walk onto the field with a contract bigger than his coach's entire career earnings and still look like he belongs. So what do you think? Is Sanders rewriting the rules for good, or is this deal too much too soon? Will the Browns actually seize the moment, or will Cleveland curse strike again? Drop your thoughts, because honestly, we're not just watching football anymore. We're watching history. Because at the end of the day, Shedeur Sanders didn't just sign a Nike deal. He signed the future of sports. And he signed it in orange and brown. All right, so we've already unpacked the bombshell that was Shedeur Sanders' record-breaking Nike deal. But let's be honest. The ink on that contract was barely dry before the ripple effects started tearing through the NFL like an earthquake. Because this wasn't just about one player cashing in. It was about an entire league realizing the rules of the game just changed. And the Browns? They've suddenly become ground zero for a cultural shift that nobody in their front office was actually prepared for. Let's rewind to that preseason game, because that's where the aftershocks really began. The crowd is electric. The dog pound is buzzing. Sanders has just delivered a clean performance. And then Nike drops the press release. Fans gasp, commentators lose their minds, and the stadium itself feels like it's hosting a coronation instead of an exhibition game. But while fans are cheering and jerseys are selling faster than hot dogs at halftime, inside the Browns locker room, things are tense. Because here's the truth. When one rookie suddenly becomes the highest-paid athlete in the room, dynamics shift. You've got veterans who've spent years clawing their way through contracts, bouncing between teams, grinding just to stay on a roster. And now here's Sanders, fresh out of college, pulling down a deal that doubles what most of them will see in their entire careers. And to top it off, he's not just getting a bag, he's getting control. That 50% cut of jersey sales? That's not just money. That's power. That's leverage. And leverage in a locker room? It changes everything. Some players are inspired. They see Sanders and think, that's the blueprint. That's how we take control back from the teams, from the league, from the sponsors. Others? They feel the sting of jealousy. They whisper, they side-eye, they grumble about earning it first. It's human nature. And Sanders, whether he likes it or not, is caught in the middle of that storm. But here's what separates him. He's not crumbling under the pressure. He's embracing it. He's showing up to practice early, staying late, talking to teammates, making sure that while his brand is skyrocketing, his leadership presence is just as strong. That balance, the business mogul and the locker room guy, that's the needle no one else has threaded before. Now let's talk about the prime equity clause again, because this is the piece that's sending tremors across the league. For decades, athletes have been at the mercy of their franchises. The team owns the rights. The team owns the jerseys. The team owns the narrative. You could be a superstar, but if the franchise decided to cash in on your name, you were just along for the ride. Sanders flipped the script. His image rights? His. His appearances? His. His likeness in commercials and video games? All his. That's not just a contract detail. That's a revolution. It means the next wave of athletes are looking at Sanders and saying, if he got that, why shouldn't I? And suddenly, every team owner, every GM, every marketing exec is sweating. Because the balance of power is shifting. The league has always been the puppet master. But with deals like this, the players are cutting the strings. And Nike? They're sitting pretty. Let's not pretend they're saints in this. They didn't drop $250 million on Sanders out of charity. They saw the writing on the wall. They saw his charisma, his marketability, his lineage, and his potential to dominate the cultural conversation. For them, this isn't just about football. It's about turning Sanders into the face of a global brand. And with those jersey sales, those commercials, those social media numbers, they're already getting their return on investment. But for the Browns, this is where things get complicated. Because Sanders is more than a quarterback now. He's a franchise within a franchise. He's bigger than the team's brand. And that creates a tug of war. On one side, you've got the coaching staff, led by Stefanski, still trying to run things like it's business as usual. On the other, you've got ownership, staring at the cash registers ringing every time Sanders' name trends online. The Browns suddenly have to decide, do we build our team around football logic, or do we build it around the Shedeur Sanders empire? And let's be honest, this is Cleveland we're talking about. The Browns' history with quarterbacks is cursed. They've turned promising careers into cautionary tales, hyped saviors into punchlines. Now they've been handed a quarterback who's not just good, but transformative. The stakes couldn't be higher. Mess this up, and they won't just be mocked for another bust. They'll go down as the franchise that fumbled a generational opportunity on and off the field. Meanwhile, Sanders is playing this like a pro. He's not flexing the money in interviews. He's not flaunting the deal in teammates' faces. He's talking about winning, about preparation, about staying focused. That's what makes him dangerous, not just as a player, but as a cultural icon. Because he understands the narrative. He knows that being rich is one thing, but being respected is what cements your legacy. And let's not ignore the cultural piece here. Sanders isn't just a quarterback. He's a young black quarterback redefining what power looks like in the NFL. For decades, black quarterbacks were doubted, marginalized, or forced to prove themselves more than anyone else. Sanders didn't just prove, he negotiated. He walked in and said, "I deserve ownership of my image. I deserve to be compensated fairly. And I'm not waiting 5 years to get it." That's not just business. That's a statement. And you better believe other players are watching, especially the next generation of black quarterbacks who've seen doors closed to them before. So where does this all go? That's the $1 million, or should I say $250 million question. Because right now, the Browns are staring at the most marketable player they've ever had, maybe the most marketable rookie the NFL has ever seen. The temptation to start him week 1 is overwhelming. Forget depth charts, forget earning your stripes, the money, the buzz, the pressure from Nike, the fan base chanting his name. It's all converging. Stefanski can try to hold the line, but how long before ownership steps in and says, "Put him out there"? And that's where the drama really heats up. If Sanders starts and thrives, Cleveland becomes the epicenter of a new era. Suddenly, the Browns aren't the punchline anymore. They're the trendsetters. They're the team that launched the NFL's first player-mogul hybrid. But if Sanders starts and struggles, if he takes hits, throws picks, and looks like a rookie under the lights, the narrative turns fast. Overhyped. Not ready. Nike made him, not football. And that's the risk of being both a star and a brand. When you stumble, the whole empire shakes. And yet, here's the thing. Shedeur Sanders isn't scared of that risk. If anything, he's built for it. Pressure doesn't crack him, it fuels him. That's why Nike doubled down. That's why the Browns are caught in the crossfire. That's why the fans are in shock. Because they can feel it too. Something bigger than football is happening here. So let's hand out a fake award while we're here. The CEO in Cleats Trophy. Because that's exactly what Sanders is. He's not just a rookie quarterback. He's a businessman, a brand builder, a cultural force, and oh yeah, a guy who can throw a perfect spiral under pressure. And you're sitting here wondering, is this sustainable? Can one player really be all of that at once? Rookie quarterback, franchise savior, and brand mogul? Or is the weight of it too much, even for someone as composed as Shedeur Sanders? Because here's the truth. Whether you think it's hype or history, whether you love him or roll your eyes, you can't ignore him. He's changed the conversation. He's shifted the power. And now the Browns, the NFL, and even Nike themselves are just along for the ride. All right, let's talk about the fallout, because by now this isn't just a contract, it's a cultural event. Shedeur Sanders signing a $250 million Nike deal at a preseason game wasn't just a headline. It was a shockwave. And the aftereffects? They're everywhere. In the Browns locker room, in the league office, in sneaker boardrooms, even in the minds of rival quarterbacks who suddenly feel their grip on superstardom slipping. Because here's the truth. This wasn't just about money. This was about power. For the first time in NFL history, a rookie has more leverage than his coach, more buzz than his franchise, and more financial independence than half the league combined. And the Browns? They're scrambling to figure out how to manage a star who doesn't need them to get rich, doesn't need them to build a brand, and frankly, doesn't need their permission to shine. Let's paint the picture. It's the Monday after the preseason game, and Shedeur walks into the facility. He's not strutting, he's not flashing diamonds, he's just calm. But the entire vibe of the building has changed. Teammates who once saw him as just another rookie are now looking at him like he's something else, something bigger. Half of them are thinking, that's inspiring. The other half? That's intimidating. And coaches? They're nervous. Because the usual playbook for dealing with rookies, keep them humble, grind them down, make them earn it, doesn't work here. Sanders doesn't have to play the game by their rules. He has his own game, one that's paying him more than the staff combined. That's not arrogance, that's reality. And it's a reality the NFL has never had to face like this before. Now let's zoom in on the prime equity clause again, because this is the piece that's rattling cages in front offices across the country. Sanders doesn't just have endorsement money. He has ownership of his image. That means he can sign deals, run campaigns, drop commercials, all without needing league approval. For decades, teams and the NFL itself have treated players like rented billboards, profiting off their faces and names while the athletes got scraps in return. Sanders just took the pen out of their hand. And let's be clear, The numbers don't lie. Sanders has already banked $15 million from jersey sales alone. Before the regular season. That's not just popularity, that's market dominance. Browns fans, who have been starved for a player to believe in, are buying into Shedeur like he's a savior. And, in a way, he is. He's not just giving them hope for wins, he's giving them a sense of identity, of belonging to something bigger than football. But here's the tension. What does this mean for Kevin Stefanski? Imagine being the head coach of a franchise where your rookie quarterback is not only the most famous guy in the building, but also the richest. Every play call, every critique, every benching becomes political. If Stefanski pushes Sanders too hard, he risks looking like the coach who couldn't manage a superstar. If he's too soft, he risks losing credibility with the rest of the locker room. It's a no-win situation, and Stefanski knows it. You can see it in his posture, the tightness in his press conferences, the way his words are chosen more carefully now. He's walking on eggshells. And let's not pretend the Browns' ownership isn't watching this like hawks. For them, Sanders is a cash cow. He's the one player who can make the franchise relevant on a global scale. This isn't about Cleveland anymore. It's about brand power. Nike jerseys, global sponsorships, media coverage, primetime games. Jimmy Haslam isn't just thinking about wins. He's thinking about dollar signs. And if it comes down to Stefanski's authority or Sanders' marketability, who do you think they're going to choose? Exactly. Meanwhile, the league office is sweating bullets. Because Shedeur's deal sets a precedent. If one rookie can demand this kind of control, what happens when the next wave of stars shows up? Arch Manning, Caleb Williams, whoever comes after, they're all going to point to Sanders and say, I want that too. The NFL thrives on controlling its product, on keeping the brand bigger than any one player. But Sanders? He's poked a hole in that armor. And rival quarterbacks? Oh, they've noticed. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. These guys have already secured generational wealth. But even they didn't get this kind of control. Sanders, a rookie, just rewrote the book. You better believe their agents are taking notes. You better believe they're going to the negotiating table with new demands. But let's step out of the business side for a second and talk about the cultural side. Because Sanders isn't just a quarterback, he's a symbol. A young black quarterback stepping into a league that has historically doubted, dismissed, and undervalued players like him. And instead of waiting for approval, he claimed his power up front. That's not just business, that's history. And for fans, especially young fans who've been told to stay in their lane, Sanders is proof that you can create your own lane. Now let's not kid ourselves. This also paints a target on his back. Every linebacker in the league, every veteran defensive end, they're all circling this story. They're thinking, you're the $250 million man? Let's see how you handle it when I plant you in the turf. The NFL is brutal like that. It doesn't matter how many shoes you sell. Once the whistle blows, you're just another quarterback in the crosshairs. Sanders knows this. And the pressure he's about to face on the field is unlike anything we've seen.